We've been asked a lot to talk in detail about how to cook on wood, and today we're going to start a series doing exactly that. Today's video is how to make a good fire. So you're going to need an axe and some heat. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the cottage on a nice, bright, blustery autumn day. Now the weather's turning now, and whilst it's nice and bright now, I've got the woolly shirt on. I know I have it on most of the year round, but Fiona and I are lighting the fires now. We're cooking back on the wood burning stoves because it's getting cooler in the evenings. Something we've been asked about a lot is to talk more about heating and cooking with wood, and that's what we're going to do in this new series. But we want to do it properly so that we really help people understand what's going on, because honestly these days most people grow up with halogen hobs and microwave ovens. They don't grow up lighting the fire in the morning, so a lot of the skills that need to do that we need to relearn. And one of the things we want to talk about, and the focus of today's video, is really how to light a fire well, quickly and effectively. And by the end of today's video you're going to understand how to light a fire, whether it's a campfire, a bonfire or a wood burning range, and you'll be able to do it even in adverse conditions, even with primitive tools. Let's start a fire then. When I went to school they used to talk about the triangle of the three things that you need to create a fire. You need fuel, and we are going to use wood, although there's plenty of other things you can burn. Then you need oxygen, which is in the air all around us. And finally, you need a source of heat, and we're going to use a lighter. Let's see if we can start a fire. Well, that was a failure, wasn't it? But why? Why can't I light that log with this lighter? We've got the three elements. We've got fuel, we've got heat, we've got air all around us. So why can't I get it to burn? Well, the thing is, you've got to have those three elements in the right proportions. And to get wood to burn, you've got to get the temperature of the wood up to somewhere between 260 and 300 centigrade. That's quite hot, to say the least, 3 times the boiling point of water. So the amount of heat I can put out from our little lighter here is not sufficient to light this amount of wood. You've got to raise a big chunk of wood, which requires a big chunk of heat energy to get it up. So to get that to burn, I've got one of two choices. I can either reduce the amount of fuel so that my feeble heat source can light it, or I can increase the amount of heat. Let's try that first. Let's try increasing the amount of heat. So as we can see, with a bigger heat source, we started to get some ignition, but even then it wasn't into a sustained burn. So the best option for us to light our fire is to reduce the size of the fuel, and then the heat we put in will raise the temperature more because it's heating a smaller amount. Let's make our log a bit more manageable. So I've got some really nice little thin pieces now. Let's see if we can get them to burn with the blowtorch. So with nice thin fuel we can get a fire with a blowtorch. But trust me, even with it being that thin, you're going to struggle to light it with a lighter. We need to get it even thinner and even finer, and then a lighter will be able to light it. How do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways of doing it, but what you can do is just shave little curls off the side of a thin piece of wood into something called a feather stick. Let's take a look at that. So we've shown we can light this little bit of wood with just taking curls off it, lighting it with a lighter. But would that bit of wood light the big bit of wood? No, because although it is giving off heat, and actually of course it's giving off more heat than the lighter itself was, it's not giving off enough heat to light a large log. So thin bit of wood, slightly thicker bit of wood, thick bit of wood, then onto a log. And you've got to build up your sizes to get your fire to light properly. And you've got to wait, as you put on each size, you've got to wait for that to catch before you put on the next size. Now, here's an interesting little thing. Did you know when you light a bit of wood, you see all those flames coming off? That's a gas, and it's known as pyrolyzing gas. And that gas is burning about 300 centigrade. That's the temperature of lighting the wood, if you remember. But after a while, that gas is burned off, and what you're left with is charcoal, those glowing embers at the bottom of the fire. And they are burning at 600 centigrade. So actually, that's really useful to know for cooking, is to get the most intense heat. You've got to wait for the flames to die down. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're getting each piece of fuel alight, getting it burning hot, giving off heat before we add the next size up. But after we add the next size up, we spread them out to ensure that the third part of our equation, the air, is still allowed to mix in. We're not snuffing the flames out, we're giving a good mix of heat, fuel and air. And you really need that, and you'll see that on a windy day, because on a windy day you may get too much air, and what's happening is that air is coming in the side, blowing those 300 centigrade flames out the side of the fire, and all that heat is going out the side and being wasted. It's not coming up the middle and lighting the fuel above. But equally, on a still day, you might not have enough air, and the Victorians knew that, and they had a magical air injecting device. And what that would have done on a still day, they'd have gone into their fireplace and blown air into the bottom of the fire. That would have come up the middle, and that would have made the fire burn more hotly. Now, in more primitive times, you may not have had a set of bellows. You'd have had an elder branch, and elder branches have pith down the middle of them. And on this branch, I've taken the pith, and what I've done is created a pipe, and with a blowpipe you can blow hard into the bottom of your fire, and that will increase the burn rate by injecting oxygen. I want to show you, just for fun, a little way that you can use this kind of information to really take this to the extreme. And to do that, we're going to set this piece of steel on fire with a rock. This is flint, this is steel, and we're going to strike the two together. That shaves off tiny bits of that steel, and because of the friction heat, that's going to be glowing as a spark. Right, we've got a spark, but how do you start a fire with a spark? Well, we're going to use this. This is charred cloth, and do you remember I said the flames burn at 300 but the carbon's at 600? Well, this is just carbon, but because it's woven as cloth, it's a brilliant mixture of air and fuel. We get a spark on that, that spark's going to grow. So with my cloth glowing, what I'm going to do is put it in a little nest of straw. Eventually your whole lot will blow into flames. Final thought that's really going to make your fire lighting easier: use dry fuel. If you look at a kettle, when it's pouring heat into it from the stove, it's boiling, the steam coming off, and that kettle's not getting above 100 centigrade. It's probably far less in terms of the metal because it's radiating heat outwards. And until you boil that thing dry, you won't get it any hotter. The same is true of fuel. You can pour heat energy into it, but until you've boiled off the moisture that's inside it, it's not going to ignite. It's going to stay at 100 centigrade, not the 300 centigrade it needs to ignite. Now, for domestic fuel, something I recommend is get yourself a moisture meter. Whether you cut and season your own fuel like we do, whether you buy it in, test that your wood is less than 20% moisture. Because if it's wetter than that, it's going to be a nightmare to ignite. So one thorny, contentious issue that we now have to cover is firelighters or junk mail to light your wood burning stove. But what we now know is junk mail is going to give off less heat, you're going to need smaller kindling. Firelighters, you can start with slightly bigger kindling, get your stove going quicker. It's entirely up to you. Do you want to save money? Do you want to get quick heat? Your call. And that's the point of understanding exactly how a fire works. Now in the next episode, we'll start applying this to a wood burning range and learning how to cook on it. But maybe you also would like to know about cooking outdoors on wood fires. If you do, let us know down in the comments and we'll make those kind of videos for you, showing you Dutch ovens and griddles and tripods and how to cook on an outdoor fire, because you can make some amazing food out there. If you want to see those videos and everything else we do on self-sufficient living, tap on subscribe, hit the bell next to it just down there. It's a free service, but that tells you every time we upload a new video. For today, thanks for joining us. Come back and see us soon. Take care.